To CNN News 18's correspondent Aman Sharma, who is joining me live on the broadcast. Aman, before we went for a break, we were talking about why is this important for Russia as well. I want to understand from you, what is the stand of Brazil on all of this? Because Brazil's stand looks a little bit of skeptical as far as the enlargement is concerned. Could you give us more details on that?
Well, there is, as I was saying earlier, there has to be a consensus in the entire BRICS grouping on when we speak of an expansion of the BRICS. So obviously, everybody is not on the same page. It is very clear, and I think if the discussion happens at the BRICS summit this time, that will also emerge. And can BRICS be expanded? As we all know, nearly 23 countries have formally applied to join the BRICS, and so far it is a grouping of only 5 nations. Out of which Mr. Putin is not coming for the BRICS summit this time. Only the other four heads of state will be there, including the Prime Minister and the Chinese President. The Brazilian President is also expected to be there. And this time, in fact, South Africa has invited a diverse group of other nations, also to the BRICS summit. So that is going to be very interesting because more than, I think, 30 heads of state from and government from across Africa are attending the summit this time. There are leaders coming from the Caribbean, there are leaders coming from South America, the Middle East, West Asia, South Asia, as well as Southeast Asia. So a larger grouping has been invited this time to the BRICS summit. So I think that will lead to some discussions on how the expansion of the BRICS has to happen. I think we should go by what the Foreign Secretary said yesterday, that India at least is very, very clear about it. India is open to the expansion of the whole idea of expansion of the BRICS summit. And so that kind of speculation, Sakshi, has been put to rest that India was not in favor of that. So I think more a consensus, if it emerges during this time at the BRICS summit, we will see it going into the direction of BRICS actually being expanded in the days and years to come.
Indeed, indeed. Coming back to you, Abhishek, circling back to actually why it is important for China, India, both of them. They had an informal meeting a few months back, and right now what we are understanding is Prime Minister Modi may meet Xi Jinping as well. Are we expecting any border talks post-Galwan clash again?
Of course, what we are gathering information that the two leaders are expected to have a bilateral in Johannesburg, and the background of this meeting is already being prepared because NSA had recently met, NSA Doval has recently met his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi in Johannesburg recently during NSA level talks of BRICS countries a few weeks ago. And now we just had our corps commanders meeting on the border issue. Also, there is the major level meeting or brigadier level meeting or senior army officials are meeting very frequently in Ladakh to discuss about the issues of disputes, point of contentions. And this all is happening in the context of upcoming meeting that the two leaders is scheduled to have or can have in Johannesburg. And for that, because while MEA had clarified recently that Indian Prime Minister and Chinese President did talk about stabilizing the bilateral relationship during their brief encounter in Bali during G20 gala dinner where all the world leaders were present. They also have always maintained that the border issue remains the bone of contention, and unless and until the border situation is normalized, there cannot be normalcy in the other bilateral aspect of India-China relationship. So in that context, it becomes really important. Also, the Chinese president is about to visit India for the upcoming G20 summit talks, and in that presence of China has to be very important. In that context, also we should see this upcoming bilateral meeting between the two leaders, where the leaders can also discuss about the upcoming joint communique, the issues that the world leaders need to sit together and discuss. Because in the past meetings, the ministerial level meetings, it has been a thing that has been underlined that the consensus is something that is missing, and India would want the leaders to have a consensus so that the joint declaration could come out. Otherwise, it would be historic that a G20 summit level talks would not come out with a joint declaration. To have that joint declaration, India needs to have all the leaders on the same page, and such meetings or such bilateral opportunity where the Prime Minister Modi can have a discussion on this will obviously help in that also.
Definitely, Abhishek. Coming back to you, Siddhant. Since we are talking about the key agenda, which is the expansion and addition of a lot of other countries who are looking forward to get inside the list, I want to understand from you the admission criteria and the guiding principles as well.
Well, yes. This time around, BRICS Summit is happening in Johannesburg, and all these leaders are meeting for the first time. And as my other colleagues were also highlighting, there are more than 69 countries invited to participate in BRICS. More than 25, 30 countries are out of African continent. The others are from the African continent. So, in a way, it's a messaging also which is being done by BRICS grouping, especially in the times when world is seemingly divided into two blocks. There is a Western bloc which talks about Russia-Ukraine conflict and how they blame Russia for the conflict. Then there is this another bloc, perception-wise, being driven by China. Russia is a member of this bloc, and they perceive geopolitical challenges in completely different way. So this bloc is largely being seen as not friends with West, and in fact, if countries like Iran and others tomorrow become the member of this bloc, then perhaps it will give more Western tone to this grouping. And this is perhaps the reason that India is again being seen as a neutral player when it comes to the BRICS grouping, because BRICS is largely seen as counter to G7. Now, India participated in the G7 summit also as a special guest in Japan. Then India has always maintained a balanced position between these two blocks. And this time around, again, India, when it comes to the agenda, which are going to be discussed in the BRICS meeting, that India has its own say to all the agenda, especially with regard to the fundraising in the local currency is something which India supports. De-dollarization is something which is going to get discussed. So there are two key topics under that. One is fundraising in the local currency, and other is the common currency. So India is comfortable with when it comes to the local currency, but when it comes to the common currency, it requires larger consensus and lots need to be done. Second, as far as the expansion of the BRICS is concerned, since more than 70 countries have applied, 40 countries have applied, we get to read and hear about it. So India say that they believe in consensus, and first consensus needs to be built, because India also has this in back of the mind that China can exploit this opportunity of the BRICS platform to command more geopolitical might. So India, is very cautious, but at the same time committed for the BRICS grouping. And this is perhaps the reason that Foreign Secretary made it very clear that India doesn't have any reservation, but yes, consensus need to be built when it comes to the expansion of the BRICS grouping. So we could expect a lot to happen in Johannesburg as far as these two key agendas are concerned. Other than this, there is multilateralism that is going to get discussed. There are other key issues which with regard to the supply chain, as Abhishek was highlighting, the fertilizer points. Those are some routine agendas that are going to get discussed, and perhaps we could also expect some sort of a consensus on those particular issues. But with regard to the currency issue and the expansion issue, India has its own say. Mostly China and Russia are on the same page, and when it comes to Brazil and South Africa, they usually, this is what I get to know while speaking to diplomat the other day. They are mostly driven by the main agenda of the BRICS. But India is one country in the BRICS grouping which has its own say, and perhaps object to if something India finds wrong, or perhaps is not suiting the foreign policy of India. So the role of India is very important, and especially in these times when India is also trying to perhaps strike a balance in the growing geopolitical competition.
Okay,
where world
Siddhant,
is
I request you to
divided.
please hold on because Abhishek also continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Abhishek, what I understood from Siddhant is that there are chances of India being overshadowed by China. Could you explain more about that?
in the Charter of Brics says that unless until all the members are agreed upon one, one decision, it cannot be finalized. So it is sort of veto that we understand is very much in part of United Nations Security Council. So the five members of Brics nation have to agree upon any inclusion of any member or any major decision that is taken as part of the group's call. So in that context, even now, China has equal rights and equal might in the BRICS grouping. But if the expansion happens, clearly this power or this whole dynamics will be diluted. Now which countries could be part of it? We are currently hearing that the countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Indonesia, all these major countries, major economies of the global south are trying to be part of this grouping. Though even if India allows or India accepts the mandate that the group should be expanded, it will not happen overnight. These countries will be initially allowed as a dialogue partner, or their role will be increased over the period of some years, and then finally they will be part of group as a full and permanent member. So in that context, the group is broadly balanced right now with the five members: India, Brazil, China, Russia. And to say that China is trying to overshadow would be little exaggeration, but at the same time, China and Russia, they are of course trying to push for the inclusion of new members and expansion of the grouping, which India, Brazil, and South Africa has not been very keen about because it will dilute their power, their policies, and overall stature in the grouping as well.
All right, all right. Aman, coming back to you. So, South Africa is not very keen on getting the powers diluted, as well as India is also not very keen of getting all the powers diluted. We might get overshadowed by China altogether. But what we are learning is that from 2011 BRICS summit, South Africa is the one that benefited the most. What is going to be their stand this time?
Well, clearly, I think what South Africa, obviously, the stand is going to be very key. See, I think if an expansion of the BRICS has to happen, it has to happen by full consensus amongst all the five members. So it's not that one country can be overruled in this. And already I think the Sherpas of the BRICS in South Africa have been holding these discussions on what will be the guiding principles of such an expansion if it takes place. What will be the criteria for such an expansion if it takes place? So I think full consensus is a word that also I think the foreign secretary used yesterday in his address, that if there is if all BRICS countries have to have full consensus on how they want the BRICS to be expanded. So clearly India's version or that of South Africa, nothing can be ignored here. Everybody has to be on the same page when it comes to expansion. But if you also see when the guest countries which are coming to the BRICS summit this year, many of them have also applied for BRICS membership. I was reading the PM's departure statement where he's saying that he's in fact looking forward to holding bilateral meetings with some of the leaders present in Johannesburg, and especially interacting with the guest countries which are coming to the BRICS summit. So that is also very crucial, that PM is also looking forward to meeting which are the guest countries which are coming to the BRICS summit this time. So that also shows that India is also trying to do this outreach amongst countries who want to join the BRICS grouping this time. We believe over more than 30 countries have been invited from various parts of the world, even Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, as Siddharth was mentioning. So also India going the extra mile. If the PM holds, meetings with some of these guest countries as well and interacts with them, and that could also be very interesting to look at the stand of India as well as other countries when it comes to the expansion of the very, very crucial BRICS grouping at this point of time, when as Abhishek said, when the world is pretty divided between pro-Russia and anti-Russia when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war.
Since you mentioned Russia, I want to come back to you, Siddhant. Siddhant, we are learning that Vladimir Putin is not going to be a part of the in-person meet in Johannesburg this time. He perhaps might join through online communication. Could you tell us more about who is going to be his representative at this BRICS summit as far as the in-person meet is concerned, and why exactly is he not going to attend the BRICS summit this time?
Well, we could expect a Russian delegation to be in Johannesburg representing President Vladimir Putin. We can also expect Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, to be in Johannesburg, since he has been involved in BRICS negotiations from very beginning. But as Vladimir Putin is not participating in the summit in personal capacity, but is going to get connected through video conferencing, B, he is very much committed to BRICS, and perhaps the speculation is that he could also announce easy and perhaps on cheaper rates shipment of more grains to South Africa and perhaps whole of African region to get more goodwill and support from the African region. So that is perhaps going to be the agenda for the Russians because right now they are under immense attack. And perhaps every day they are being criticized for coming out of the Black Sea grain initiative, and all these all these countries from the west have been blaming Vladimir Putin that this would disrupt the supply chain. This would disrupt the shipment of wheat to the countries from the global south, global north, and it would affect people. The inflation will increase. So that is how West is attacking Vladimir Putin. So this could serve as a platform, as an opportunity for Russia to get some goodwill if Vladimir Putin announces free shipment at a cheaper rate and easy shipment to the African nations, and that perhaps could get a goodwill for him. At the same time, Russians have heavily invested in the whole of African continent, in South Africa as well. So in last time around, also the joint statement had a very mild, very mild mentioning of the war in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia. This time around, also the Europe is interested to see that how this grouping is going to react to the war which is going on in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. Is there going to be a strong statement coming? Or perhaps a milder statement will in the joint communique. That is something which perhaps everybody is looking out for. But Russia is optimistic, and also Russia knows that since this grouping is seen as a counter to G7. So Russia is quite excited for this grouping, because this grouping right now is balanced. But in future, the way China wants this grouping to expand, it could in future have an anti-West tone. So Russia understands the importance of this grouping, and this is perhaps the reason that the full Russian delegation is going to be in Johannesburg, and President Putin is going to connect through video conferencing. Obviously, he cannot come in personal capacity because of the International Criminal Court of Justice's warrant against him. So, but in terms of commitment, in terms of seriousness for this grouping, Russia is very serious. Back to you.
Well, Aman, coming back to you, we are understanding that apart from geopolitics, there are going to be some pressing matters that will be discussed and are going to be on the table as well. It's, I think it's the cooperation and the development, the trade development, basically what we are talking about. Could you explain more on that?
Yeah. See, there is a lot of issues regarding to counter-terrorism. Multilateral systems are going to be discussed. PM is also be participating in the Brics Africa outreach and the Brics Plus dialogue. Also, after the summit concludes on 23rd and 24th. So, in a way, a large agenda is on the table. Also, the global economic recovery post-COVID. There are a lot of ongoing geopolitical challenges, as the India has mentioned, considering the Russia-Ukraine war. The sustainable development goals also, for example, are on the agenda. I think this will be seen across the BRICS summit in different sessions, which will be discussed. I think women-led development is something that the PM is also going to focus upon, because this is something which has been addressing occupying a lot of the mind of the global leaders. So women-led development, how that can happen. Also, I think the open plenary will also see a lot of discussions on these topics at BRICS this time. But obviously, the highlight of the BRICS summit is going to be whether there is forward movement on the expansion of the BRICS.
I apologize to interrupt you there. Aman, Abhishek and Siddhant, I'll request you to please stay with us on the broadcast, because we have some very important breaking news coming in, and it's about tweet coming in from Prime Minister Modi himself ahead of his visit to South Africa. Now, he has tweeted out that I'm leaving for South Africa to take part in BRICS summit being held in Johannesburg. I will also take part in the BRICS South Africa outreach and BRICS Plus dialogue events. The summit will give the platform to discuss issues of concern for the global south and other areas for development. So that's the tweet coming straight from Prime Minister Modi himself ahead of his crucial meet in South Africa, that Brics summit that we are talking about. Coming back to Abhishek, could you please elaborate?
Of course, as Aman was pointing that this whole BRICS is a developmental bloc, so we don't have heard about the security issue or other issues of importance being discussed in the past. So, but on the issue of development, this is the most crucial time, perhaps the last few years, that the world has to think about the geoeconomics, its role, the balance of supply chain, production centers, market economy, de-dollarization, creating currency swap, or creating a common currency. Also about the use of digital currencies, and so many issues of economic importance are currently right now very important, that the leaders are going to focus on those issues. Also, the South-South cooperation, that how these group of five countries that are permanent members of the BRICS, they can participate or contribute to the development of the global South, the countries that are largely from the West Africa, or the African countries who does not have the might or the enough resources to have development. Energy transition is another area where the leaders are going to focus, because we know that the fossil fuel are not going to be there for maybe 2 days from now. They'll be short in supply. So how to create a backup plan, how to ensure that the renewable energy transition in this part of the world happens very quickly and very at a very larger scale, because China holds the key. If we talk about the energy transition, China holds the key because it has a lot of minerals and also critical technology that is part of creating these electronic vehicles. And also in some sectors, it is the sole propriety or sole dominance. And if the world needs this transition, China needs to be engaged properly. So that is one of the areas where the discussion can happen. Of course, we talked about the food security, energy security, how the world needs to have a sustained supply of food and at a price that can be afforded by the income grouping, by the lower income group countries. That is also one of the agenda, de-dollarization, and how this group can have their trade in their own currency is one of the important issue. But then to have the currency swap arrangement, or to have the trade in their respective currency, we need to have a trade balance also. If we don't have a trade
I have
balance,
to interrupt you over there, because we have some visuals, very interesting visuals coming in straight from South Africa to show to our viewers as well. I'll request Aman, Siddhant and Abhishek to please stay with us on the broadcast. Now, South Africa is all ready to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You can see the visuals of Prime Minister Modi's welcome here on the wall. The welcome preparation in South Africa is on full swing, since my colleague Aman Sharma also mentioned that we share a very good bond with South Africa, so we were expecting a grand welcome of Prime Minister Modi there in Johannesburg. And as you can see in the visuals as well, the posters of Prime Minister Modi, the grand posters welcoming Prime Minister Modi, are already there in the visuals, as you can see. Of our Prime Minister Modi there in Johannesburg. Abhishek, Siddhant and Aman, I request you to please stay with us on the broadcast. I'll come back to you for more details about this crucial BRICS summit in Johannesburg. But for right now, we are slipping into a very short break. Stay with CNN News 18 for more updates on the other side.
No, you think you.
No, I don't. I don't.
The services,
Akshay, if you had a simple submission to make tonight, in all humility, that yes, there was a lapse. Yes, this guy should not have gotten away. This was a let up. This should not have happened. Had you said that, Akshay, I would have been willing to agree to that argument. The people who are watching this broadcast would have been willing to buy that argument. But you have come all
you
guns
asked the
blazing,
BJP.
thinking this is a law and order issue.
Because
Yes, Delhi police
is
did
a
not
law and
make the
order issue.
arrest,
What
and
are you
I'm going to
talking
ask Shehzad Poonawala that. Why the hell did not the Delhi
Ask him.
police arrest this man? And he
Yes,
will have to
Shehzad
answer the
Poonawala
people
tell us.
just like you have to
Tell us.
answer the people. But for God's
Tell us
sake,
why Delhi police?
please
Why
do
did Delhi
not,
police not arrest?
please do not
Why did Delhi
reduce
police not
the
arrest?
issue
No.
of justice for a
No.
14-year-old
Why
girl
did Delhi
to
police
your
not arrest
dirty
this
politics, man. Come on, spare us
Shehzad-
that.
No, you are dirty politics, Zaka.
Shehzad
You are
Poonawala.
Shehzad Poonawala.
Shehzad Poonawala, now please answer the question. Delhi police registers the FIR on 13th of August.
Yes, sir.
8 days before today.
Yes,
but
sir.
today they go and arrest this man. Why? The only difference is, it's not like they didn't have powers of arrest 1 week ago.
Yes.
The only difference that's happened is that the media has gone to town with this story. It has outraged the people of Delhi, this story. And that's why all of you all are acting.
Zaka, I am actually very, I can't have words to speak because the kind of tone and tenor even you have, it has affected all of us. And I just request that I have not interrupted anybody. Let me explain to you all the actions, starting with the Delhi police action and then come to certain questions we need to raise. As far as Delhi police is concerned, Zaka, this girl was taken in the custody of the officer in October 2020. He started abusing her. There was a complete failure of the child welfare committees which are tasked with the job of seeing how these children are kept, especially if they've lost a parent during COVID. Thereafter, during the counseling session, it was got to know that he was being raped and the pregnancy was terminated. One of the counselors and other people responsible informed the police. The police, based on the statement of the mother, recorded a 161 and immediately registered an FIR, and that was on 13th. Next day they called the concerned officer. Now, as far as the law is concerned, the law is very clear that unless at least the victim's statement is there, directly to make such an arrest is not possible. We have a lawyer and we have the former commissioner also. So as soon, and the doctors told them no talking to the victim till she is okay. Today, the moment they got an opportunity to talk to the victim, they immediately recorded a 164 and arrested. But let me ask you 2 or 3 questions. On 13th, when the FIR was registered, even though on a 161 statement, why was the government not issuing a notice for suspension of this officer? The reason is,
और कब वे शिखर सम्मेलन में भाग लेंगे?
Okay, so we have live visuals of Prime Minister Modi leaving for Johannesburg, as you can see on your screens as well. That's Prime Minister Modi leaving for a 3-day trip to South Africa to attend the Brics summit in Johannesburg. It's very important because it's going to be the first in-person meeting to be held after 2019, after 3 years of COVID pandemic. And right now, as you can see on your screens, that's Prime Minister Modi leaving for Johannesburg. He tweeted out as well that he is leaving to attend the Brics summit. What we are expecting is he will be going to Greece after Johannesburg. We are expecting him to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping as well to hold bilateral talks, but we don't have any substantiated information about that. But we are expecting him to meet Xi Jinping in Johannesburg as well. Right now, as you can see, Prime Minister Modi there leaving for Johannesburg for Brics Summit 2023. Coming back to you, Abhishek, who continues to be with me on the broadcast. Abhishek, why is that altogether so important that Prime Minister Modi is going to Greece as well? And as Aman mentioned earlier, it's the first time after 40 years that an Indian Prime Minister will be flying to Greece as well.
Of course, see, Greece happened to be engaged with India about since 2000 years long. I mean, there is a history, and we all know that India and Greece had a connect, even during the time of Sikandar and in Ashoka also. But those trade connect, those cultural connect had been lost in the time in the current context, if we say. And India and Greece, they don't share that much of strong partnership in terms of trade, of people to people exchange or cultural exchanges. So to enhance that, this visit is going to be very important. Prime Minister is also going to have a diaspora event where he will be addressing the people of Indian origin in that region. And also India and Greece are trying to explore an opportunity where Indian presence in the Mediterranean can be enhanced, and there could be a direct trade link that can happen from India to Greece, and that can further India's reach to the market of other European countries. So in that context, Greece is becoming very important. and crucial part of India's overall plan where it wants to have market access of Europe and the other part of the world also. And Prime Minister Modi, as we mentioned, that he's been going there after almost like 46 years. So that also says Indian Prime Minister's keenness to engage with new partners around the world. Greece happens to be the one of the important partners in the European Union also. So engaging with Greece will also mean that India is engaging with Europe. So strategically, economically, India and Greece partnership or the Prime Minister visit to Greece is going to give some boost to India-Greece bilateral relationship in multiple directions.
Well, Siddhant, coming back to you, not so long ago, while doing a press conference, Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra actually talked about the theme for this year. Could you tell us more about the key takeaways from that press conference apart from the theme?
Well, yes, Foreign Secretary spoke on many issues with regard to Prime Minister's visit to Johannesburg to attend the Brics summit and then to Greece. When it comes to the overall understanding of this particular visit, then a Brics summit is important because India doesn't want to isolate any of the grouping. India doesn't want it to be seen as a country in getting more inclined towards West, and that is perhaps the reason that Prime Minister is attending Brics in person, in personal capacity, and perhaps time and again India has been doing this messaging that India is committed for Brics grouping. India is serious for the Brics grouping. Second, as far as the Greece is concerned, then India and Greece has a civilizational ties, as Abhishek was pointing out, and Prime Minister is also going to be taking a diaspora meeting in Greece, and largely, if you talk about the purpose of this visit to Greece, then it has more to do with security and defense cooperation between India and Greece, since Greece has a shipping line. Many companies in Greece are shipbuilders. They are perhaps are the leaders in the shipping industry. So that could be the area of discussion when both leaders will sit down for bilateral talks. So it is largely, this visit of Prime Minister Modi to Greece is largely it has more to do with security and defense cooperation that was cleared by Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra yesterday during a press conference. Then this is for the first time that an Indian Prime Minister is going to Greece after 40 years. So it has taken 40 years for an Indian Prime Minister to go to Greece, and that actually talks about Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy, that how every country on the globe, on the map, is important for him. Yes. And whenever he is returning to India after attending multilateral event, he makes sure that he visits some other country and route India. So that has been his dedication for the foreign policy. That has been his way of doing foreign policy. That he tries to cover maximum number of countries, and he tries to meet in person with the head of the state of maximum number of countries on globe. So this time around, after completing the Johannesburg schedule, after attending the Brics summit, he's going to go to Greece, where there's going to be a bilateral with his counterpart. He's also going to address the Indian diaspora, and there's a lot of excitement in Greece, the way we could sense the excitement in South Africa with large publicity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Indian community is very excited. In fact, I was listening to some of the members from the Indian diaspora in South Africa. They want Prime Minister Narendra Modi to promote Ayurveda through Brics grouping. So they are already excited. The Indian community, which have been living in South Africa from maybe last 3-4 generations, and have a very have a civilizational ties with India, are very excited to welcome Prime Minister Modi. Back to you.
Okay, Siddhant. Coming back to you, Aman, I want to understand from you, as we were talking about that statement from Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra coming. He also mentioned a very important point. He talked about a business delegation accompanying Prime Minister Modi to attend some of the business meetings. Could you please throw some light on that as well?
Well, obviously, I think business is always a very, very key aspect of every Prime Minister's foreign visit. Whenever the PM goes abroad, the business leg of the meeting, where he interacts with the select CEOs of the country he's visiting, or the business delegation that goes from India, becomes very, very key, because key businesses of both the obviously finance and increasing the business ties between both countries is an important part of the agenda. So even we will see this time in the Brics summit also that there are meetings of the Brics Business Council, there's a meeting of the Brics Business Forum, and a business delegation from India is also traveling for the same. The both leaders would also address the key businesses of both the countries after the delegation level talks, and I think that is going to be very interesting. What happens what are the big takeaways from the BRICS summit this time? Because also this is the era of post-COVID recovery, economic recovery for all over the world. So in a way, India being the leading, fastest growing economy in the world right now after COVID, every country is also looking at a close partnership with India when it comes on the front of business and economy. So in a way, the business level delegation also becomes very crucial, and let's see if there are some good takeaways from this visit on the issue of business and finance.
Definitely. Aman, Abhishek and Siddhant, I'll request you to please hold on, because we'll decode all the small details and corners of this crucial BRICS summit with you. But after this small commercial break on the other side.
Was not even an IAS or a DANIX officer. He's a low-level officer who was promoted right up to OSD of Kailash Gehlot in 22. He had solid political patronage. If you see the last 8-9 years, he has been given key responsibilities, and that entire infrastructure was working to defend this man. I am saying there was not a single minute delay in the arrest. 164 recorded. The next moment, the husband and wife have been arrested. On the basis of that, the arrest has been made. But you had one FIR registered already on 13th. Now, between 13th to now, I am just asking few specific questions. A, where was Swati Maliwal? Did she not know that this has taken place? Where was the DCW counseling the child? Why did she not go in the last 8 days to the child? Why did she not tell the government of Delhi that put the notice for suspension of this officer? Apart from that, the CWC, the Child Welfare Committees, there's 7 of them in Delhi. They have told Supreme Court that every child who has lost a parent, we have the information, it's online. Where was the information of this particular child? And today you come and you have so much bluster to defend this with all kinds of allegations saying LG is responsible. I think, Zaka, I am sorry that you had to see this kind of argument. It is not about my rape, your rape, or this tutu meme. We need to work for justice for this child.
Akshay Marathe, quick response, then Geeta Luthra, SN Srivastava.
We have been crying hoarse that we want the power to discipline officers, but this BJP people in parliament have been.
Why were you promoting him in 22, Baba? Forget disciplining.
Be disciplined, and now they have the gall. They don't have the shame to come and say, why did Aam Aadmi Party not take action against the officer? Why the hell did you take away the power of the Delhi government to discipline officers? Now you don't have the shame to accept that Lieutenant Governor is his job to discipline officers. And your Delhi police, if the Delhi police is told that a girl is being raped, you are saying 8 days Delhi police will not do anything because section 164 has. What the hell is going on? And you are saying
Zaka, let me come in and let me please have an opportunity.
Akshay, you think we are fools?
Akshay,
the Delhi police will not take any action.
Zaka, I am not being aggressive does not mean I should not get my time.
The girl has been raped.
Akshay,
what is going on?
No,
Zaka.
Two things. One second. I also need to go to the other 2 guests who've been waiting patiently.
But just 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds.
Give me some time. They've been waiting patiently. Geeta Luthra is
It's a very important counter. See, I don't want to spoil this debate structure. First of all, what was the compulsion under which Kailash Gehlot was making him OSD? Did the LG ask you to do that? You are saying we don't have the powers to penalize. I think this every statement counter should not happen. I heard him out, Zaka. I should not be made to force. I should not be made to beg for my time.
One second.
Let me finish my statement.
Zaka,
my time goes in. This is not fair, no, Zaka.
I'm pulling out of
Zaka, but this is not fair. He interrupts me. Does not mean I should not get
Shehzad, 1 second. Don't lose your cool.
Zaka, but
I'm going to come back to you.
It's not fair. Let me just complete my statement.
I'm not ending the show right now. I'm going to come back to you.
Please, I request you. I'll finish in 10 seconds. It's very pertinent. Very pertinent. It should not go as a misconception. First of all, the LG has no role in this. Please, this is not about services power. You have been promoting this officer.
NCT
Secondly,
already.
as far as the
Read the
arrest is
government
concerned,
NCT Delhi
please,
Act.
Zaka, I am not interrupting. Let's have a civilized debate. I request you. As
Welcome back and thanks for staying with CNN News 18. We continue to decode all the nitty-gritty about Prime Minister Modi's crucial visit for the Brics Summit 2023. It is the first in-person meet after the years of COVID, after 2019. Specifically, Russia is not expected to join. Russia is actually joining. Vladimir Putin is joining, but via internet communication. His representative, Sergei Lavrov, is expected to be his representative at the in-person meet this time. Coming back to our correspondents who continue to be with me on the broadcast. First, coming to you, Aman. Aman, Vinay Quatra actually mentioned about a special event that Prime Minister Modi is going to attend, and even he tweeted out about Brics South Africa outreach and Brics Plus dialogue. What exactly is that?
Well, this is going to happen after the summit concludes on the 23rd and 24th. Also, Prime Minister Brics Africa outreach is also something that India has had had a major outreach to Africa over the last few years. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has specially taken a keen interest in it. That South Africa this time has invited a number of guest countries from Africa, as well as other emerging markets, developing countries to participate in this event on the 24th. So the Brics Africa outreach, the Brics Plus dialogue is expected to look at this larger grouping of leaders who are coming, especially the invitees from Africa, the other guest countries who are coming. And India is also making this extra effort to reach out to these countries, to develop multilateral relationships with all these countries. It also ties up with the India's project of, acting as what the PM said in the interview to a French newspaper, to be the shoulder of the global South. So that whole agenda of being the leader of the global South, the voice of the global South, I think these two dialogues which happen on the 24th, when the Prime Minister will participate in them, and it will in fact, it will be very interesting to see what the Prime Minister speaks at these events, because India has been, in a way, Africa has been in a way ignored by the larger developed nations in the world. There has been a feeling in some of these nations that they have not got their due, and India actually outreaching to them and going the extra mile to speak to them. Even PM visiting many such nations, many such premiers coming to India on visits earlier. I think the Brics Africa Outreach Summit and the Brics Plus dialogue at that way become very, very key events after the summit concludes on 24th, and this will happen on the 24th of August before the PM leaves for Greece.
Well, Aman. Okay. Abhishek, coming back to you, as we were talking about Russia, we are understanding that Sergei Lavrov is going to be Vladimir Putin's representative this time, because of course he cannot attend the meet because of the International Court of Justice's arrest warrant against him. Could you throw some light on that?
Of course, we know that South Africa has ratified that treaty through which the International Court of Warrant is applicable in South Africa. And since the warrant was out against Vladimir Putin because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, so he could have been arrested in South Africa, or it was a legal obligation on the South African government to arrest a person who has been, declared fugitive or absconder, and the warrant has been issued against anybody. So to not let that complexity, further go weird, President Putin had decided not to visit South Africa this time during the summit, the Brics summit, and his right hand, if you could so say, Sergei Lavrov, who happens to be the foreign minister also, and who has been a very crucial part of major international policy decisions of Russia in the past several years also, will be representing Vladimir Putin. Sergei Lavrov was also representing Vladimir Putin during the last G20 summit talks in Indonesia. Also, remember that time the war in Russia and Ukraine was just 6-7 months old, and the world leaders were trying to push Russia and isolate the Russian leader. And in that concept, probably just 2 days before the G20 summit talks in Bali, the Russian president had declared that Sergei Lavrov will be representing him at the summit talks. This time also, Sergei Lavrov will be presenting him at Brics Summit, but President of Russia will also be having a chance to interact with the world leaders and other events through video conferencing, and probably he could announce the Russian, grant or Russian, way of dealing with the food crisis or the food security in the southern part of the world or the major African nations, where he can declare, or he can announce some discounted price for the food grains that these countries are in need of because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. There has been a severe shortage of grains in the international market. We have also seen Indian government also, trying to create a buffer stock for the wheat, and while India remains one of the top wheat producer. And the same situation has happened across the world. And imagine the kind of plight these countries who does not have enough resources, who does not have enough means to produce for their own population, they must be going through. And to contain that fear of having a hunger in these countries, Russia is trying to create a situation where it is sending grains shipments to these South African countries at discounted price, or a price that they can easily afford. So this is something that the Russian president is going to say, and he can also voice some of the foreign policy decision that the Russian president have been taking, or in the context of Russia-Ukraine war, what is the stance of Russia and how Russian action in Ukraine can be justified. So probably he will also explain that to the world leaders.
A lot to look out for, Abhishek, indeed. Abhishek, Aman and Siddhant, I'll request you to please stay with us on the broadcast because we have some reactions coming in on the same. Let's take a look at them.
His visit is going to add to all the bilateral trade, other agreements, which is going to be beneficial for both countries, South Africa and India. Look forward to have him in South Africa, and not once, again and again. We all welcome him always, and will always be our hero. Brics Summit provides a platform for all the developing nations to boost their bilateral trade. If you look at the participant countries, they represent 60% of the trade of the world. So we're quite optimistic that Brics can provide a formidable platform for the trade.
We are very excited. Our Indian community throughout our country are very, very excited that our Indian Prime Minister is coming to our country, and I'm positive that with all the achievements that Prime Minister Modi did in India, he will definitely bring that down to the summit and help all the countries to grow from strength to strength and take all the countries to another level. He's done great changes in India, and we all of us really appreciate all that he has done for us.
Well, we'll continue to track all that nitty-gritties about the important Brics Summit 2023. But for now, we are slipping into a very short commercial break. Stay with CNN News 18 for more details on the other side.